This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is my friend, Mark Souza. We got stuff to talk about in the world of football. We did not get a chance to talk about the NFL awards due to the Super Bowl, but we will talk about the awards today and our reactions and our thoughts about who received those awards. And also, we'll talk about some new head coaches on some new teams, as well as Aaron Rodgers' future with the Green Bay Packers, as well as just the NFL in general. But let's get right into it. The NFL awards were Saturday before the Super Bowl. They, I believe it was like the 7th annual award? Or like 5th? No, 8th. It was the 8th annual.
Yep, 8th annual NFL honors.
And it was a fun show. Harvey was the host, which I didn't even know he watched sports. I always think I was someone related to sports, but he's not really related to sports, is he?
No.
And he's also infamous for saying the pageant name wrong or something of that nature. I forget what it was about. What was it, Miss Universe or something?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on. We mainly the main awards are the AP awards, from what I've from this basically the standard awards. Mm-hmm. Should we talk the MVP first or last?
Whatever you want.
Well, I think it's obvious who the MVP was for this season with 50 touchdowns and over 5,000 passing yards. Patrick Mahomes is MVP, shocking nobody.
Yep. Patrick Mahomes, followed by Gurley and Breeze.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And poor Breeze still without an MVP award, but I think it'll come to him before he retires. What do you think?
Breeze? No, he'll never win the MVP.
It's a little harsh.
Why is that harsh? He's 38 years old, and he hasn't won it yet. He's gotten second like 3 times.
Yeah, but that means he still plays at a high level. He still plays at an MVP-like level.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You asked me if he'll win it. I said no. I think the odds are stacked very high against him. Could he win it? Absolutely, he could, but
I'm going to disagree with highly. I think before he retires, he will win an MVP.
So, like, next year then, right? Because then I don't think he's going to win after 40, right?
Well, Brady won at 40.
Right.
So
yeah, Brady, the GOAT.
Okay,
right.
Well, he hates being called that. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I forget who he was talking to, but I think it was Strahan. And he was like, I hate being called that. I'm like, you are so just shh. Being able to
Breeze really had a chance to win it this year, though. He was probably the front runner. He broke a couple records this year. He was on everybody's mind.
If it wasn't for Mahomes having one of the greatest seasons of all time.
Yeah, or the fact that Breeze just tailed off. The last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, his numbers went way down compared to what he was at the beginning of the year. So I think if he would have sustained his success, no matter what Mahomes did, I think Breeze would have been the favorite to win just because of the experience, the people putting in the work and stuff. That means something to voters. It is a subjective award, not a objective award. So even though Mahomes could have finished with better stats per se, I think Breeze, if he would have been close, would have been the winner. So it is unfortunate. It's hard to feel terribly bad for Breeze because of how awesome his career has been. He has won a Super Bowl. He has been considered one of the best players at his position for quite some time. But yeah, no, it's going to be hard to do this again. It's going to be hard to be in the conversation next year, especially because who won? Mahomes. I think it's more likely Mahomes will have the season that he just had more than Breeze will, if we're just comparing those two and no one else. So we will see, though. It's possible Breeze could have another crack at it. It would be cool if he did win it.
Yes, it would cementify his he's guaranteed Hall of Fame in my opinion already. Probably everyone else's opinion, but it would just cement his Hall of Fame status by winning the MVP one time at least. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we're going to talk also Coach of the Year, and that was Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears. Also, his assistant won the AP Assistant Coach of the Year as well. So, do you think it's well-deserved, or do you think it was more along the lines of...
I think it's well-deserved for sure. I also think this is the award that I'm very happy about because Matt Nagy was my favorite hire of the offseason. And I was really high on him, and he didn't really get a whole lot of coverage. He didn't get a whole lot of press. Mm-hmm. But he was, he comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree. Andy Reid said that Matt Nagy was the best assistant coach he ever had. And that included a guy named Doug Peterson.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. And Matt Nagy is someone that Andy Reid said he was even a better coach. And that, to me, signified a lot of things. And him winning Coach of the Year, kind of saw it coming. I liked that combination of him and Trubisky, a mobile quarterback. But, yeah, I think it's well-deserved, too. Look what the Bears did. I mean, they had a great season. And, yeah, they
Well, they were not expected to be even near the playoffs. They were like 11-5 was more of their destiny than 11-5. So it was a very unexpected turn of events for the Bears, definitely, even with Khalil Mack on their roster. So everything that needed to go well went well for the Bears this season, for sure.
It's really unfortunate.
Well, except for one thing.
It's really unfortunate that they missed that field goal against the Eagles because had they made it, I think they had a really good chance of winning again. And if they would have won that divisional round game, maybe they win the NFC Championship. Maybe they go to the Super Bowl. We'll never know. But it is unfortunate how their season came to an end. But, of course, they have a bright future. They have a young head coach who obviously has already tasted a little bit of success. They have a young quarterback who's getting better. They have an interesting team. And, of course, they have a good, dominant defense. And that can really help sustaining success for years and years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a good sign for the future, definitely for the Chicago Bears, and they're definitely going to be a contender for many years to come.
They will have to replace their assistant coach, though, who did win Assistant Coach of the Year, Vic Fangio, who is now the Broncos head coach. So that will be interesting. Mm-hmm. That will be tough for them because Vic Fangio has a reputation of being a very, very good defensive coordinator in this league.
Yeah. It's a very It's going to be bad losing an assistant coach that won the assistant coach of the year, but I think the terms of the fact he's still the head coach, he's still the leader, and he still can help this team win. I don't see this slowing down the Bears anytime soon.
Maybe. Well, you never know. You never know until they start playing the games because.
There's been plenty of times where a team goes like 13-3, then goes 1-15.
I will say that replacing Vic Fangio might be difficult because I do remember how good he was with the 49ers, and when he left, that team fell apart. Now, it wasn't like he was the only one who left. There was other main pieces that left too, but you just never know. You just never know. I don't expect them to fall off necessarily, but it's going to be hard to sustain that level of success. The Bears had a great defense this year, so should they be back next year playing at this level? I think they should, but we've seen crazier things happen in the NFL.
Yeah. Crazy things like, I don't know, a 13-3 Super Bowl where one touchdown was happening. It wasn't even a passing touchdown. Do you know the last person to throw a touchdown in the Super Bowl, a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl is Nick Foles? Let that one sink in.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go 2 years, basically, without a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. And who knows what's going to happen next year.
All right, so what's the next award? Defensive Player of the Year?
Yes, and any shock to this one?
Aaron Donald.
No shock to me. 20.5 sacks speaks for itself as a defensive tackle.
It was either him or Mack. I agree with Aaron Donald. I thought he just dominated the NFL.
It was a man playing against children.
First few games of the season, he was on a snap count, but once he kicked it in a gear, I think he got his first sack in week 4, week 5. I mean, 20.5 as an interior.
He could have broken the record if he played all 17 or 16 games.
I don't think people really understand how crazy that is for an interior lineman too, because when you're lined up inside, it's much easier to get double and triple team than you are coming off the edge where you're on the outside.
The edge, you can easily go by the lineman and get through to the. It's much easier in theory.
Mm-hmm.
And with how dominant, and when you're compared to Thanos, you're an intimidating guy.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's an absolute
and that's like an insult to him being called a beast. Like, he's just a monster. He's just not human.
Yeah. So no problems there. I thought Aaron Donald was your defensive player of the year, and he wins. So what are we at now? Rookie of the year?
We're at AP Offensive Player of the Year, which was, again, Patrick Mahomes.
Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah, that was a little surprising to me because usually they give it to the non-MVP.
Yeah, which I'm assuming was going to be like Breeze or Gurley or something like that. Yeah. Which I don't like the fact they can be qualified for that. I feel like if you win MVP, you're no longer qualified for Offensive Player of the Year because isn't that like a given?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's my opinion, but whatever. Then Rookie of the Year, everyone thought it was going to be Mayfield. Well, it turned out to be...
I didn't.
Well, there were some people that said...
Mayfield didn't play the whole season. If he played the whole season, I think he would have won, but what Barkley did was untouchable.
Well, Mayfield did break a record of most touchdown passes by a rookie quarterback, so...
Yeah, I think Barkley held a few records in his own right for a rookie. And let's be honest, man. Saquon Barkley, Pro Bowler, it would have been... I think it would have been really I think it would have been very political if Baker would have won. Like, that would have been like, wait, what?
Political? How?
Because he was the number 1 pick.
I mean, Barkley was number 2 pick.
Right. But I'm saying that Baker Mayfield, how many games did he play this year?
He started, 10? What? Yeah, roughly.
Barkley played 16, like.
Well, you could say Donald missed, first 4 weeks?
No, he didn't miss those games. He played.
Barely. Like, he was limited, wasn't he?
He was on a snap count, but he played in those games.
Granted.
But yeah, I mean, Donald, if he missed those games, that would have even spoken to how great he was. Mayfield played good in those games, yes, but Barkley was electric in every game he played in this year.
True. And then he was also Offensive Rookie of the Year, which maybe should have went to Mayfield just because of what we just discussed about the MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, just based off that. Because it's like getting the same award twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Defensive Rookie of the Year obviously goes to the leading tackler in the NFL, Darius Leonard. Very well deserved, in my opinion. He played an amazing season. He was very under the radar throughout most of the season until people thought, well, wait a minute, he's the leader in tackles.
Yeah, and not only that, but he had 7.5 sacks for the Colts. He was a playmaker. He forced fumbles. He was all around the ball all the time. And he was
a key reason they made the playoffs.
The Colts' first pick was Quentin Nelson, All-Pro. Darius Leonard, their second pick number 34, if I remember correctly, All-Pro. That's a good start, and it shows how good that Colts draft was, and it's really set them up to be good for years to come.
I honestly think that's one of the key reasons they got in the playoffs was such a great draft class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it was like they had a good team regardless. Yeah, I get that, but without Leonard and without Nelson, they're not in the playoffs.
And which leads us to the Comeback Player of the Year award.
And we said this for weeks and weeks. It was Andrew Luck, and it's, of course, Andrew Luck.
Another Colts player getting an award, and obviously Andrew Luck deserves Comeback Player of the Year because of what he has been able to do with coming back from injury.
People thought it was
career-ending.
Yeah. It was career-ending, supposedly. So,
I mean, he missed, 2.5 years or so?
It was a long time.
He's been gone a long time.
Yeah.
He came back.
It was like he retired and came back, basically.
I don't know if he's recovered fully his arm strength, but he definitely has came back.
I saw
close.
some deep throws, so it's getting there quickly.
He's close. Deserved Comeback Player of the Year. Where are we at next?
We are at Walter Payton Man of the Year, Chris Long from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Chris Long.
He gets that cool patch on his jersey now. I love that patch. I think it's a cool looking patch, to be honest. I was confused at first when I first saw him. Like, what is that? Like, is it like a veteran patch or something? Because I saw a lot of older players have it. Then I realized, oh wait, and then they show the Man of the Year award patch, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy, I like when a bunch of patches are on one guy. It just shows how much success he has and stuff like that. They should do that for more things, not just Man of the Year.
All right. Any other awards?
There was the FedEx Air and Ground Players of the Year.
Mahomes and Barkley, right?
Yeah. The Bridgestone Performance of Play of the Year.
Miami Miracle.
Correct. It actually has its own Wikipedia article already.
Mm-hmm.
It was a regular season. I understand it was a huge win for Miami, but it's. I think it's blown out of proportion, don't you think? There was not.
It's just an all-time great play that.
Yeah,
we'll probably
it was
never
just.
feel
I
forgotten.
think it was just there was not much. There was not a lot of importance to that game. I think that's why I'm thinking of it. It's not as exciting as everyone else thinks of it. I think it was a great play, no doubt about it. But I think it's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment of the year goes to Aaron Rodgers. I'm not sure what the moment was. I don't remember what the moment of the year meant. Do you know?
Nope.
Yeah, maybe it's the comeback in the week 1 against the Bears.
Yeah, that's probably it.
And I'm not sure what the unstoppable performance of the year meant either, but it went to Jared Goff. Maybe it was the 54 points they had against the Chiefs.
Possibly,
That's my only thought about it. Game Changer Award goes to Shaquem Griffin with his obvious by his one-arm play, and he's still playing in the NFL, which is amazing. Deacon Jones Award goes to Aaron Donald. Makes sense. Art Rooney Award, which I'm going to look up, is the recognition of outstanding sportsmanship on the field, goes to Drew Brees. That one makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The Deacon Jones was the leading sack leader, so yeah, obviously. And your thoughts on this one? I think it's kind of interesting. The offensive line of the year went to the Rams offensive line. Should have went to the Colts.
Maybe, but based on what they did offensively with Gurley and with Goff, I think it was deserved.
Yeah, but it could have been arguably given to the Colts, yes?
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah, they did a great job themselves. And now we have the Pro Football Hall of Fame class that was also announced. I'll read them off, and you can just give your piece on them. Champ Bailey, deserved, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree with that. Tony Gonzalez, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Ty Law, absolutely, in my opinion. Ed Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were a lot of defensive backs, basically, is what we're saying. There was also, what was it, I can't pronounce it.
Kevin Mawai.
Yeah, legendary center for the Jets mainly, I think, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Robinson, an old safety for the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him, to be honest.
He was on their Super Bowl team in Super Bowl IV. He was an interceptions leader, and he was able to play. He played well. He was an AFL player. He played in the AFL before they went to the NFL merger, and he's on an all-time AFL team. Last time I checked, so legendary player. And then just an offensive lineman in Patrick Bolin, who I believe
Pat Bolin. You talking about the owner of the Broncos?
Oh, owner, I'm sorry. Oh, I totally apologize. It says O, and I thought, offensive line, but you're right. It is owner. So, because they went, this one's for Pat during the Super Bowl 50. So, yes. And, yes, he's still.
And Gil Brandt, vice president.
And
he helped build the Cowboys team in the 90s.
Right. He was one of the people helping in the trade. For those, yeah. He was also, ironically, a Rams executive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny to think about because of during the era. And then we also had the celebration of the year, which went to the Seattle dance. Don't really remember it, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the awards. Any awards stick out to your mind that's like, oh, maybe that shouldn't have went to him or vice versa?
I think they're good.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of controversy in this, you think?
No, Not really. Not in my opinion.
Okay, well, we'll go to break, but first I want to talk to you about investing. Because when investing and planning for your retirement, it's always best to get advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says the dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings before the greatest stock market crash in American history. But this dark window won't be open for long. You can make up to 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There's a very short time to take advantage of this dark window. So once again, you want to take advantage? Go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We just finished talking about the NFL awards. Now, let's move on to some new head coaches that were officially announced yesterday, as the Dolphins and Bengals have new head coaches. And what are they, my friend Mark?
We have 2 new coaches officially announced. You know, we knew they were going to be announced, but now that their seasons are over, it can be official. Brian Flores will leave his post as defensive coordinator, de facto defensive coordinator. I think his official title was linebackers coach with the Patriots, but he will now be the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. He'll stay in the division. And then on the other side, Zach Taylor, who was the quarterback's coach of the Rams, will assume the head coaching role for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll start in the AFC East. We will discuss Brian Flores and his new appointment with the Dolphins. He goes from New England to Miami to try and resurrect a franchise that has been mediocre to below average for a number of years. What do you think about this hire for the Miami Dolphins?
I'm always hesitant when it comes to New England coaches under Bill Belichick going to a new team because there's a lot of unsuccessful runs there for them. So it's interesting to see. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, it's good. It's a risk. But the thing is, the Dolphins have said that they don't want to win. They're not going to win for the next couple of seasons. I think they're waiting out when it comes to Belichick and Brady before they make a run for the AFC East title, because they're the last team to win the AFC title since that was the 2008 season where Brady was out for the season, but they still went 11-5. And you remember who the quarterback was for the Patriots back?
Matt Castle.
Matt freaking Castle. They went 11-5 with him, and they only missed the playoffs because the Dolphins also were ahead of them. They were 11-5, but I think they had a better divisional record. So that's how that worked out for them. And so I guess they're just waiting out Brady, Belichick, or maybe just both. So they're not looking to win right now, so I think it's a perfect position for a new head coach, especially the one where you're kind of already you're in the process of being with the other coaches of the New England era as not successful. So you have a lot of dishype, if you will, on you.
Yes, we have heard Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, talk about how he's committed to a rebuild, and doesn't matter if it's going to take 1, 2, 3 years for it to happen. He is committed to it. So it sounds like They will probably cut bait with Ryan Tannehill, release him, let him go into free agency. And I'm not sure where they're going to go at quarterback, but I think they will not spend any big money.
But can you trust a man with two first names instead of just a first name and a last name? Because he has a last name is a first name. Is that hard? Can you trust a guy like that?
Who are you talking about?
The owner. His last name's Ross, right?
Yes.
That's a first name. I don't trust a guy that uses a first name as a last name.
Oh, really?
Nope. Not at all.
All right.
I'm kidding, by the way.
him.
But I'm saying it's also suspicious that why can't you just have a last name?
Yeah, I guess.
I might have just insulted people, and I'm sorry. But that's been like that was a running joke I heard from time to time, just like you don't trust people with two first names.
Or the red hair.
Gingers, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a slur now? People think that's a slur now. It's not.
I don't know, man.
I think people get offended too easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyways, moving on. Definitely, the new Dolphins coach did come off holding one of the best offenses in the league to only 3 points.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
But do you put an asterisk on that because Jared Goff had one of his worst performances, or do you think that's all because of the defensive play? Or because we did talk about how Goff had a struggling postseason in general?
Well, I think the New England defense is always led by Bill Belichick, so...
Is he getting the credit for something he really had no say in, you're saying? Or is it more along the lines of
not that. I just think it's not... Like, Wade Phillips was a defense coordinator for the Rams, and, like, Sean McVay doesn't touch the defense.
Right.
But that's not the case in New England, so I don't know. It's hard to say.
Belichick is a defensive guy. He was the linebackers coach and defensive coordinator.
It's hard to say where the credit begins and ends with a assistant coach. What we do know is assistant coaches in New England have had terrible success in the NFL. They just haven't been able to find their own way. Charlie Weiss, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels, to name some. Now we have Matt Patricia. We don't know how his...
He's only had one season. Let's give him a break.
Yeah, we don't know yet, but that's what we do know. We do know that it has not happened yet. Will it happen? Probably. Will Brian Flores be the guy to make it happen?
TBD.
He could be. He really could. Vrabel could be the guy, too, over in Tennessee. You really never know. The thing is, that Bill Belichick coaching tree has not grown. It's only stunted.
Do you think that's why the Dolphins went after him, because of the fact he wouldn't, he's a part of the Belichick era, but he knows he's not going to win right away, so not a lot of pressure on him?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's obviously they're not going to fire him after 2 seasons because they already said they're not planning on winning for the next 2 seasons. So sorry, Dolphins fans, but in general, this coach is probably in the best position of any other coach in the league because he's not pressured to win right away. He has time. They're being patient with him.
Mm-hmm. They gave him a 5-year contract, so that does kind of signal too that maybe there is some patience there. Dolphins, though, man, they just haven't had they haven't been able to sustain any success. They have been consistent in terms of every year they're winning about between 7 and 9 games, it seems like, for the last decade. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really are there every single time.
I don't remember the last time they were 3-13 and getting this first or second pick at the draft, unless it was 2005 or something.
It's an interesting draft for them, though, because I don't think they're going after a quarterback.
They're too late in the draft to go after a quarterback too. Maybe they can squeeze in a Drew Lock or a Daniel Jones from number 14 spot, but that's asking for a lot of other things to happen.
Yeah, that would be. I don't see them doing it, even if one of those quarterbacks is there. I think they'll go for a different position and then try to address that quarterback position next year.
Well, we have been surprised in the draft before, so I'm not ruling anything out, but I do agree with you.
Yeah, we'll see. On the other side, the other hire was quarterbacks coach Zach Taylor. He's going from the Los Angeles Rams, where he coached Jared Goff for the last couple of years. He will be heading east to be the new head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, replacing Marvin Lewis. What do you think about this signing? What do we know about Zach Taylor? I mean, we don't really know much.
Jared Goff is what we know from him, and That is a serious concern for me because Jared Goff is not this unbelievable. Like, if it was a quarterback's coach for, let's say, the Chiefs, I would say, oh, this is a huge signing for them. Patrick Mahomes just had an MVP year. Probably a lot of help from the quarterback's coach. But this coach, he has to basically, it's almost like he has to unconvince people that, like, that's not how I coach. I coach better than this. It's just who I was coaching was not as talented as I wanted him to be.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of doubt in my mind when it comes to the quarterback's coach for Los Angeles Rams and how he's going to influence an entire team as the head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't really know, what type of coach Zach Taylor is. Well, what we do know is he's another young coach from the coaching tree of Sean McVay. So, yeah, we really don't know anything about it. But like you said, Sean McVay, I mean, he pretty much was the offensive coach for the Rams. And we don't know if Jared Goff's positives and negatives are more attributed to McVay or to Zach Taylor. We just don't know. And what we do know is that Goff seemed to get worse as the year progressed this year and not better. He had a tremendous beginning of the year, but that ultimately tailed off at the end of November through December into January, and then ultimately with the devastatingly poor performance against the Patriots on Super Bowl Sunday. So,
understatement.
We don't know. We really don't know. But what we do know is he will take over a Bengals franchise that's very inconsistent. He'll take over a quarterback, Andy Dalton, who's very inconsistent. I think the Bengals are going to have to make a big decision on Andy Dalton. I don't know if they will do that this year, but they'll have to do it at some point, right?
Yeah, I think it's almost a formality now.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think both these teams, both the Dolphins and the Bengals, are in a rebuilding era and where they need to start from the ground up. And that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They're both going to move on from their quarterbacks in Ryan Tannehill and Andy Dalton, respectively. And it's just a matter of time. Like I say, this is more of a 3 to 4 year plan for both teams rather than winning now.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the Bengals are.
I don't see them winning next season.
In their mindset. Like, I don't see... I don't know if they're looking to rebuild. I mean, obviously they need to build. I don't know if they're looking to, wipe their hands clean of Andy Dalton and any quarterback and then move on. Mm-hmm. Or if they're looking like, hey, if we get a couple players, we could be good next year, especially if we get A.J. Green back. And with Mixon and Andy Dalton, if we can get the best out of him, maybe we're a playoff team. I don't really know what their mindset is as a franchise moving forward. I don't know what Zach Taylor's mindset is as a coach going forward. All in all, the Bengals, to me, Jeff, might be the most mysterious team into this offseason because I certainly have no clue what players they're targeting, what their plan of action is, and what their franchise mindset is heading into the 2019 NFL season.
They are a mystery.
I guess we'll find out a little bit more by their free agency activity. That'll give us the first inkling of knowledge to what they're looking at.
Which would also lead to what they're looking at in the draft as well.
Right. So
this is a very important free agency, and I'm very looking forward to seeing what they go for.
I think if they're quiet in the draft, in free agency, I think if they're quiet, then maybe we're looking at more of a long-term shift. But if they're aggressive, maybe they go after one or two of the names. Maybe we're looking at a team that's looking to be good next year.
But again, they have to convince them to go to Cincinnati, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm just saying not an ideal place for a high market.
Right. So we'll see. I think they're maybe the most interesting team going into this offseason.
I would say most unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So those are your two new coaching hires. Now, we do not know which coaches will be on their way for each of these respective teams. I read that Brian Flores could be adding former head coach Jim Caldwell to the coaching staff. I don't know if that is something that's already done, behind closed doors and hasn't been announced yet. But there are rumors that Jim Caldwell could be named assistant head coach and maybe coordinator for his staff, but I do not know that as of yet. That would be an interesting hire, obviously bringing somebody in on staff that has experience. Kind of what we saw with Sean McVay hiring Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips, former head coach, older gentleman, maybe pairing with a younger head coach. That seems to be something that might be the new dynamic in the NFL. You could certainly see it happening with both teams, the Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals. But with these two hires, every job in the NFL is full.
Yeah, we are officially filled. We have all of the spots for the coaching positions. But the question is, what I think I want to ask you. I know this is way too soon, but that's what I love about this. You can do way too soon. What do you think the next head coaching positions will be open for next season? Because we're always going to have new head coaching positions every single year. Do you have one in mind that you think, they're definitely going to be open next year?
So maybe like early season hot seat candidates?
Yeah.
Like early, okay.
Way too early, way too soon. But we've seen those
I think
all the time.
Carolina's interesting. Ron Rivera, I think
He was kind of in trouble this season.
That's an interesting dynamic because we don't know what Cam Newton's status is, so it's really hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Newton's not going to play and the Panthers aren't very good, does the coach get fired for that? I don't know. He's certainly going to be somebody who's looked at. What about Marrone in Jacksonville? I don't know how secure he is. I really don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of questions about. Especially, I think the one that I'm most curious about is definitely Carolina and Rivera, because if he does get fired, what happens to his Pepsi commercial?
It leaves.
it just dies. But obviously, I'm assuming if he does get fired, which I think is a very good chance, that he will find a job elsewhere, just assistant-wise, or maybe even like a head coach in college or wise or something of that nature. But it is a very interesting to look at because of the fact he is one of those guys that has been in a Super Bowl, has taken a team of 15-1, and now is on the hot seat. It just shows you how a turn of events can change a whole franchise. Mm-hmm. And so he's definitely a hot seat guy, in my opinion, as well. But do you see any of the new we've already seen a one-year head coach get fired in Wilkes in Arizona. Do you see another one happening this year, or do you think that was just a very long-time thing, like a very rare instance?
I don't know about that, but there's one job that I think could be someone could be on the hot seat, and that's Dan Quinn for Atlanta.
Oh yeah, he was again another guy that was in the hot seat this year.
They fired both offensive and defensive coordinators this year at the end of their season.
They're basically trying to avoid firing their head coach. It almost felt like, huh?
Yeah, so that's one of those things where if they have another 7-9 or worse season like they had last year, then I think he's gone. I really do, because they do have Matt Ryan, they do have Julio Jones, and that team has been close. Like they could have won not too long ago, but they didn't. They've been close. They might be trending in the wrong direction, maybe not. This season's so big though because if he has a bad season, I think he's gone. I think they kind of maybe reboot. If they have a good season, then, all is good. But, yeah, this is a super critical year for Dan Quinn.
Yeah, he needs to do something. And but, again, that would be a very if he does get fired, that would be a very flattering spot for head coaches looking for a job because you'll have Matt Ryan. And maybe, I don't know what Julio Jones' future will hold, but if he's there, that's definitely an attractive spot.
Yep. All right, we'll go to a break. Before we do that, I want to tell you about investing and planning for your retirement. When you do it, it's always best to get advice from the experts. Best-selling author Harry Dent, America's #1 economist, says, "The dark window is open. There's an opportunity to rapidly boost your retirement savings before the greatest stock market crash in American history. But this dark window will not be open for long. You could make 10 times the annual average stock market gain in just a few short months. According to the research of renowned Harvard economist Harry Dent, though, this window could slam shut later this year, and nobody on Wall Street is expecting it. This dark window is something bigger, by far than anything he's predicted up to this point, and you can make 10 times the annual average stock market gain. Find out more by going to www.harrydentforecast.com. There is a very short time to take advantage of this dark window, so go to www.harrydentforecast.com to learn more.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC football podcast, finishing up our day. But we got to talk. We've talked about head coaches, talked about the NFL awards. Now we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers because he does not need surgery on his knee, what people thought he would have. But it is a question of this downhill slump. Is he on that, or is this just a little speed bump in his career?
That is interesting because we are at the point of his career where he's entering the late stage, the twilight of his career. He's 34 now, should be 35 soon. So, yeah, I mean, he's been injured the last couple of years. We've seen a very durable player look almost injury-prone. I don't want to say that just yet, but, you know, he broke his collarbone. He's hurt his knee. He hurt his knee again last year. He's avoiding surgery, it sounds like. He will be on track to go through the offseason program because he won't be having surgery on his left knee. Remember, this left knee, by the way, is the same left knee he tore his ACL on in college. So this is a knee that has been repaired previously. Aaron Rodgers, as we know, is a very mobile quarterback. He can get outside the pocket. He extends plays. That's probably one of the best attributes that he has. But if his mobility is affected, it could affect the way that he plays quarterback. Tom Brady is obviously still playing at a very high level, but Tom Brady is still not at the level that he once was. So with that being said, do we see Tom Brady or do we see Aaron Rodgers' career taking a step back? I just might. I'm not sure, but this year will definitely be big.
It's not impossible for sure, but it just seems like he's obviously not the
he's not a young quarterback anymore.
Yeah. He's not a Tom Brady either, where he's wine, where he is growing older with age. He's turning to
he doesn't have a Bill Belichick, that's for sure. He doesn't have a Bill Belichick, and now he has a young, new head coach. And you were asking if any coach could get fired in the first year. I think if there's anyone that could be, it's Matt LaFleur, because of the pressure.
Honestly, that's who I was thinking as well. But, yeah, there is a lot of pressure because if he can't get it done with Aaron Rodgers.
If you go like 4-12 and you have Aaron Rodgers, I think you're done.
And also the Packers are an always win situation. They're never running except a building situation because of the fact they really can't afford it because of the fact they're in Green Bay. It's kind of not as attractive to go there as it used to be.
Yeah. It's a big year for Aaron Rodgers, too, because if he has a season where he's nicked up, do the Packers consider looking for his replacement next off season? Obviously, they will not do that this year. But if Aaron Rodgers, let's say, gets injured and misses half the year or is playing half the year hurt like he did this year, will the Packers spend a second, third, something like that draft pick on a quarterback as the successor to Aaron Rodgers, kind of like what the Steelers did with Mason Rudolph last year? Or will they just continue to ride this out and not really have a plan B?
The thing is with that is I think they will go to let's not make this into a spectacle situation and draft someone very late, like 5th or 6th round. So it's not that big of a news. Like, you know what I mean? Just not make it into a controversy right away. I think it's too early to put them, like, 2nd or 3rd will make everyone think, oh, are they going to replace Rodgers the next couple of seasons? I think if they do 6th or 7th, they'll be like, oh, that's just a guy, just a case for Rodgers. But in reality, they'll be thinking maybe this guy's going to be a good replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Because do they want? I don't think they want the drama. That's just my experience with this whole thing. Is they don't want the drama with Rodgers and another quarterback.
Yeah, but at the same time, they drafted Aaron Rodgers when they had Brett Favre.
This is true.
And they drafted him in the 1st round.
But that was a time in where it's like, this is true. This is very true. That was a time where he was supposed to be arguably supposed to be the 1st overall pick in the draft too. So they might have thought, oh, we could steal him and take him arguably because he dropped unnecessarily far down.
Right.
So that might have been very lucky for them. They had to take advantage of it.
It would be kind of ironic if the Packers drafted a quarterback in the 1st round at some point.
I could see them, like, if there's a Drew Lock dropped late or a Justin Herbert dropped late next year, that they could take advantage of that. That is a possibility.
Yeah, remember, Favre was entering his 13th season in the NFL when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. So,
and he's entering his 15th or 14th season.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah, he's entering his 13th. So it would kind of come full circle, right?
Yeah, I guess it would make sense. I guess every 13, 14 years they look for a new quarterback.
It would be kind of funny if Aaron Rodgers was upset about it, though, because we know that Brett Favre was, like, really rigid to
wow,
Aaron
how far, like, that's a complete full circle. And kind of, would that be hypocritical of him?
I don't know about that, but it would be fun.
I don't remember his reaction to when he was what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the word I'm looking for. What was his reaction to when Favre's reaction was negative? Was he a negative reaction as well, or was it more along the lines
at that point, he was just a rookie or a young quarterback sitting behind Favre. Nobody really talked to him, right? So
true.
Yeah, we will see what happens. But man, I know it might sound crazy, but NFL teams usually like to get ahead of this, right? Like they like to. There's a reason why the Patriots drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like they thought, well, Brady might only play a couple more years. We need to get our next quarterback. Now, they spent a high 2nd-round pick on Jimmy Garoppolo. It wasn't like the Patriots, a team that's used to drafting late in the 1st round, that's a major investment for them because they don't have the opportunity to get a top 10 pick every year. So,
but don't you think it was almost under the radar too because he was out of Eastern Illinois, so it wasn't like, oh, they're looking to replace him right away.
Yeah, but it was like a thing at the time, though. I remember when they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, Patriots fans were like, really? Like, wait, what? And then
it kind of went away, though. Very quickly.
Well, it went away because Brady's kept winning, right?
Yeah.
But
it also went away like that same season, though. So it wasn't like it took some time. It was a very quick change. It was a very quick, regretful type of thing. Well, now he's on the 49ers, so they're really – now Brian Hoyer is their backup. Like, is he going to take over? Absolutely not. Now people are saying, like, well, maybe they should draft a quarterback in the next couple of rounds again and do another Garoppolo situation because of the fact Brady's not going to be there forever.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of get ahead of this stuff. So maybe the Patriots do also look at quarterback this year. I think the Packers just might. Obviously, I think most people would say the Patriots are more likely to do so, but you never know, man. Again, you want to get ahead of these things before you're stuck with no quarterback and then a retired quarterback. So we'll see.
I mean, they have Brian Hoyer. He can lead them to a couple more Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's see how good Belichick really is, right? Take Brian Hoyer.
I'm pretty sure Belichick would retire.
Brian Hoyer, retirement. Brian
He'd
Hoyer.
tell Josh McDaniels, good luck with that. It's not fun.
And Josh McDaniels would go, where's Tebow?
Mm-hmm. Anyways, anything else you'd like to add in for this episode of GSMC Podcast Football?
Also, we saw Trey Wingo kind of go off, and you were talking.
Oh, yes,
sports,
Trey Wingo.
You were saying the sports podcast, but you were also saying it was a stunt, but we never know in these situations.
He had a moment where he's snapped. He's never been like that. It seemed a little bit forced, a little bit manufactured.
Yeah, but there was also a moment that's never really been where someone says a Super Bowl is that boring. Like, this is arguably the most boring football game in NFL history. That's the most hyped, you know? I mean, it was like watching just a preseason game almost, you know? So I understand why, if he was upset, like, why would people watch it? They keep complaining about it. But it's like, people love to complain about stuff. And, of course, it was a close competitive matchup, too. So it wasn't like this game was over at the first quarter. Like, people thought maybe this could pick up still. But not in his mind. He was kind of furious about people. And he was, like, saying we're the worst, quote-unquote. I think he was kind of aiming at us, too, because we kept saying that. It was boring. Maybe he heard our podcast. I'm not sure. But overall, it was just a outburst. I mean, we all have outbursts. And his was just, it might be fabricated. It might have been scripted, obviously. But we never know.
Yep. We never know.
Yep. But I think that's it. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that is it, man.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Please tune us in tomorrow on a Wednesday for our sports, baseball, and soccer podcast. So, as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and that is Mark Souza, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.